For 5 months now, the Listening Post has covered Israel's war on Gaza through the prism of the media, including the unprecedented number of Palestinian journalists killed. But what is taking place in Gaza is much bigger. It is a genocidal assault on Palestinian history, existence, and culture. Most of Gaza's museums, universities, and libraries now lie in ruins. Too many cultural creators and custodians have been killed. And when South Africa invoked the Genocide Convention at the International Court of Justice, it noted that in Israel's destruction of Gaza's archives and landmarks, it is obliterating Palestinian personal lives, private memories, histories, and futures. This is not the first time Palestinian culture has been the target of Israeli destruction and looting. However, what has happened since October 7th has eclipsed anything we have seen before, including in the Nakba of 1948. What happens when cultural heritage is erased? Who controls the historical narrative, and to what effect? To grasp the enormity of what's been lost and what it means, we spoke to Gazan writer and historian Jehad Abusalim.
To understand the scale of destruction in Gaza today, one needs to understand the nature of the war Israel has launched against Palestinians. We're not talking about conventional warfare. This is a war of annihilation that targets the foundations of society. We've seen universities bombed, libraries, museums. Israel is trying to prevent Palestinians from reclaiming and re-establishing life in Gaza as they knew it. My name is Jehad Abusalim. I'm from the city of Deir al-Balah, located in the middle of the Gaza Strip. It's where I grew up and spent most of my life. Gaza City was the only Palestinian coastal city that was not conquered by Zionist militias in 1948. And that gave Gaza a huge significance and placed it as the beating heart of preserving Palestinian nationalism and furthering the Palestinian cause for liberation and emancipation. By destroying universities, museums, libraries, and archives, Israel seeks to make our memory, whether it's collective, institutional, inaccessible. It's an assault on continuity. They want to force people out of Gaza, but also they want to make sure that if people return to Gaza, they find nothing and dwell for eternity in this limbo of nothingness, in this void. Gaza's old city, with its mosques like Al-Umari or a church like the Church of Saint Porphyrius, testifies to Palestine's complex and multifaceted history. Al-Umari Mosque is the second oldest mosque in Palestine after Al-Aqsa Mosque. And from the footage that we've seen, it seems that the mosque was deliberately targeted, because there are photos that show surrounding buildings standing intact, while the mosque has been bombed to smithereens. So Israel is trying to impose a rupture between the present and the past, and of course the future. And destroying an iconic structure like Al-Umari Mosque is just part of that effort. The goal of targeting Gaza's archives is to make it impossible for people to rebuild and reclaim what has been lost. We did not only lose historical documents, but also land deeds, land registration, infrastructure plans and schemes. Now we hear all these reports of people going back to their neighborhoods and being unable to recognize where the street that they lived on was located, where their homes were. And they think that by destroying institutions or archives or looting museums, they can destroy Gaza as a place and therefore prevent people from returning there or reestablishing their lives. Gaza and its district have suffered a lot in terms of the targeting and destruction of historic and heritage sites. After 1967, after Gaza became under Israeli occupation, Israeli Defense Minister Moshe Dayan built an entire infamous career, in addition to being a war criminal, of looting artifacts from different parts of Gaza and Palestine and storing them in his own home. But also in the 1970s and 80s, Israeli forces, alongside Israeli archaeologists, looted a 4,500-year-old Canaanite cemetery located in Deir el-Balah, my hometown, and they took anything they could carry to the Israel National Museum. And today I go on the internet and I see artifacts that were stolen and looted from this site being sold around the world. And that makes you wonder if Israel's practices today are a new phenomenon or just a continuation of a long-standing pattern of destruction and looting of Palestinian history and culture. In this war alone, Palestinians in Gaza have lost towering figures in their society who shaped and defined the cultural and scholarly life in Gaza. And if there is one individual that captures the essence of this city and what it stands for, it's Rifat Larayr.
If the lions do not have their own historians, the history of the hunt will always glorify the hunters, will always glorify the occupier.
Rifat was killed while he was sheltering with his sister and her children. Before he was killed, he received a phone call from an Israeli officer warning him that they're after him. He was killed, his sister was killed, the children were killed, and his brother was also killed.
I'm an academic. Probably the toughest thing I have at home is an expo marker. But if the Israelis invade, if the target has charged us, open door to door, to massacre us, I'm going to use that marker, throw it at the Israeli soldiers, even if that is the last thing that I would be able to do.
He was an important professor and a writer and a poet whose impact transcended his personal work to shaping and molding of a generation of English-speaking Palestinians in Gaza who mastered the art of telling their stories. But we've also lost a large number of cultural and literary figures, and of course many academics. This is an assault on the people who create meaning in society and who create the language that helps people understand and reflect on their reality. Israel knew what it has been doing and continues to do by attacking and going after our cultural and literary and intellectual figures. But Rifat, like Gaza, is an idea, and ideas don't die. Bodies can perish, cities can be destroyed, but the ideas that they stand for the principles and the values. These are things that do not just vanish into thin air. They continue to exist and to inspire people for many years to come.
Back to where